Hi everyone, I'm going to go over today's assignment for creating an experiment. So for this assignment you can work in a group of 3, a partner group, or just by yourself is fine. You'll just include your group members' names here, and then you can go ahead and get started as long as everyone in the group has the document shared amongst them. The first 3 slides, as you'll see on the left hand side, are all blank. You'll want to make sure that you've made a copy of this assignment and saved it to your drive. Or, just keep it with Google. And so these slides are at the beginning because they're easier to access there, and then it's not until slide 4 that we really get into the discussion of what the Create an Experiment lab is. So your directions are going to be basically you choose a question that you would like to find the answer to using the scientific method, and then you also have the option to actually record yourself doing the experiment if you'd like, but it's not a requirement. That would be for extra credit. The only requirements are that you fill in Table 1 and Table 2, the first 2 slides of this page. And like I said, you can work by yourself or in a group. So you will choose one of the following questions, whatever seems to interest you the most. And of course, if you have a question that is not listed here, that is something that you want to try out for your Create an Experiment, would be perfectly fine. You just need to run that by your science teacher first. And then here at the bottom, we have a teacher example. So, for example, when handling bread, how does the cleanliness of hands affect future mold growth on the bread? So that starts with your question. Then you're going to write your hypothesis, and it's easiest to use an if-then statement for writing the hypothesis, but here we have bread handled by clean, washed hands will have less future mold growth than bread that was handled by dirty, unwashed hands. And so this is something that I can test because I can test the amount of mold growth on the bread, and I have something that I can control, which would be the cleanliness of the hands. So my independent variable would be how clean my hands are. My dependent variable would be the amount of mold on the bread because that's what I'm going to measure. And then eventually we have some things that we have to keep the same because this is a controlled experiment and we only want to change one thing at a time. And that's our independent variable, how clean our hands are. So the controlled variables would be everything else that we keep constant, or you might hear them referred to as constants as well. So all the bread will be the same. Bread will be kept in the same area with the same amount of light, moisture, and temperature. And it's going to be the same size Ziploc bag. Bread pieces were in the Ziploc bag for the same amount of time, 4 weeks. So these are all things that we're going to keep the same in order to make our experiment valid and controlled. You'll tell me what the control group is. So that would be bread that was untouched by hands. Bread, for our control group, it's always the group that does not experience the independent variable at all. So it would be untouched bread. The experimental group would either be the bread that was touched by hands that were washed or bread that was touched by dirty hands. The data that we collect is the mold growth, and then a brief explanation of what the experiment would look like. So how could you conduct this experiment? Summarize. Make sure that it's something that could be done with other group members if they wanted to take your experiment and reproduce it, because that's something that we would need to do in the scientific community to see if your hypothesis can be disproven or proven by more than one person, more than just you. And lastly, if you wanted to go ahead and do this bonus option, that will have a separate due date, as obviously some of these experiments would take more time. So I'm thinking about making that due date possibly the end of the marking period. And that way it gives you plenty of time to conduct one of these experiments if you so choose. And so this would be optional data. You would include an image of the experiment that you conducted, so I know that you have really done this experiment, and then you would include your data table as well as your conclusion. So your conclusion is basically going to reiterate your results in paragraph form, and also state why your hypothesis was proven or disproven. So this is the assignment. The only required portions, again, are these first 2 slides. You have the option of choosing one of the questions that is given, or coming up with your own and running it by your teacher, and then designing your own experiment, defining the variables, explaining how it would take place. That's all that I have for this assignment. If you have questions, please reach out.